Yellowstone icon Kevin Costner is actually a communist sympathizer, Armando Salguero. If you're ever inclined to believe Kevin Costner is some sort of American icon because you watched him as a heroic figure on Yellowstone, The Untouchables, or some other Hollywood fiction, remember that none of that is the truth. Because the fact is, Kevin Costner is pretty much a communist sympathizer. It's been that way for a while, and was again just this week. Costner makes nice with Cuban communists. Costner earlier this week made his way back to Cuba, according to the Agencia Cubana de Noticias, which is the Cuban news agency. It was at least his second trip to the imprisoned island nation. Costner wasn't just there as a tourist, which is bad enough because tourism from abroad helps fund the otherwise failing communist regime that rules Cuba by paying for lodging, food, and other goods, including women, in American dollars. He was there to meet Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermudez, the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party and president, dictator, of the country. Costner was received at the Palace of the Revolution, where he enthusiastically shook tyrant Díaz-Canel's blood-soaked hand and then discussed issues related to underwater archaeology. Costner felt very well in Cuba. This from the Cuban news agency report. According to the presidency, during the meeting, the Cuban president expressed his satisfaction for the visit of the artist, highlighting the admiration that the Cuban people feel for him. Costner said he felt very well in Cuba and shared that he had been dreaming of this project for a long time, highlighting his special friendship with Cuban underwater archaeologist Alejandro Mirabal, whom he considered an important researcher. The U.S. artist highlighted his impression of the Castillo de la Real Fuerza Museum, not only because of the valuable pieces it houses, but also because of its architecture. And now allow for some unvarnished translation of that Cuban news agency publicity tripe. Costner, a useful idiot for communism. Costner said he felt really well treated, undoubtedly because he's staying in a hotel that is reserved for tourists, one which ordinary Cubans can neither visit nor afford unless they're Communist Party members, in which case they're allowed to work there. In doing this, Costner collaborated in the government's apartheid policy against the Cuban people. The actor apparently spoke of the architecture of the museum he visited, no doubt overlooking the fact that most of the rest of the buildings are dilapidated or shuttered because Havana, once a first-world city, is now a crap hole leveled by years of communist neglect. The whole thing was a disgusting visit filmed for use by a communist country to show itself welcoming to Americans, as long as they don't speak out about human rights abuses and the imprisoning or disappearing of citizens seeking fundamental liberties like free speech. This makes Costner what Karl Marx or Lenin, one of those evil men, referred to as a useful idiot, one whom communism can use for its own advancement. Costner meet with Castro started something. Anyway, more from the Cuban fake news. During a pleasant dialogue, the Cuban president invited Costner to visit Santiago de Cuba, whose bay holds an important underwater heritage. This is Kevin Costner's second visit to Havana. The first was in 2001, on the occasion of the screening of his film 13 Days, which deals with the missile crisis. On that occasion, the artist met with Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro, a meeting that marked the beginning of his relationship with Cuba, his relationship with Cuba's communist regime, this should say. I doubt seriously Costner ever ventured out to meet average Cuban people, the ones who typically wish to escape the island because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.